Hello and welcome to the third episode of Get It Together, the show where fledgling adults try making it in the big wide world with your hosts Declan and Ruth. Wait, you're not Ruth?
No, I'm not. I am Sarah, and you may have seen me in previous episodes running around and asking people questions. I'm helping out while Ruth is away this week, and I'm excited to get into this week's episode.
Well, Sarah, how much do you know about this week's topic, voting?
I mean, I am an enrolled Australian voter, so I try to keep up with what's happening in the political world. So I know what I'm voting for, but I can't be sure that I know exactly how everything works.
Then we're on the same page. I agree. So this week, we're going to be looking into the Australian democracy system to try and understand it just a tad more.
Tonight, we look at defining the terms left-wing and right-wing in the Australian systems.
I was also hoping you could help me understand a part of our voting system and help me make a big life decision this week.
I have something planned. We will also search for our political party matches.
And I'm looking forward to chatting with our guest Andrew Bartlett, a former Queensland Senator, a little later on. But first up, you were out and about, again this week, seeing what the public did and didn't know, right?
I was, and there were some very interesting replies.
So who is the current Prime Minister?
Scott Morrison?
Wouldn't know.
Scott Morrison. That's a good question.
Scott Morrison?
And who's the current opposition leader?
Bill Shorten.
I do know who Pauline Hanson is.
I did know, but not the new one.
I couldn't tell you for $1 million.
Who's been your favourite Prime Minister and why?
Oh, Julia Gillard, power to the women.
John was okay.
John Howard, because I think he was stable and good for our country.
Probably Kevin 07. I don't know, it just rhymes, it sounds better.
Kevin Rudd, because he plays handball.
Which politician had a Vegemite sandwich thrown at them?
Honestly, have no idea.
I know the Egg Boy. I know Fraser Anning, Egg Boy, but I don't know Vegemite Boy yet.
Oh, that was Julia Gillard.
Do you condone the egging of politicians?
Depends on who it is, but if it's like Fraser Anning, all for it.
Only Fraser Anning, or maybe Pauline Hanson next.
I don't.
Disrespectful.
If they're as racist as that, yeah, I think he deserved a bit more than an egg.
How long is a federal term?
Pass. 4 years.
4 years?
4 years?
Oh, jeez, Australia. They barely last a month.
How many seats are in the House of Representatives?
Pass.
A lot.
24?
70-something?
I'm just going to say 50.
168.
Can you name the 3 democratically elected branches that the Australian Institute of the Government is separated into?
Are we talking like Labor, Liberal, or am I going to have to pass again?
I think you have to pass.
Is that like judiciary and executive and constitutional?
Judicial. There's... should have listened in legal studies.
The Greens, Labor and Liberal?
No.
I think those vox pops have proven that Get It Together really needed to do an episode on the Australian voting system. Declan, now I have a question for you. What is your favourite Prime Minister Gone Wild moment?
Probably the time Tony Abbott decided that it would be a good idea to munch down on a raw onion. What's yours?
Well, I think it's wild that the late Bob Hawke actually set the Guinness World Record for sculling 2.5 pints of beer in 11 seconds.
Wow, that is wild. I'm surprised there was a lot of basic information the public didn't know. Another thing people might not know is the defined difference between the left-wing and right-wing political alignments. So check this out.
Donald Trump, Che Guevara, two sides of one coin, right-wing, left-wing. These are terms that are thrown around every day, but what do they actually mean? When it comes to Trump, the unapologetic president of the United States, and Guevara, the South American and Cuban revolutionary, they're extreme examples of these opposing political ideologies. Left-wing ideologies represent equality, progress, and reform. Guevara. Right-wing ideologies are characterized by authority, hierarchy, and tradition. Trump. And neither one of these is right or wrong. But, like most things, it's not really a one-size-fits-all situation. So how does it apply to the Australian political system? In Australia's three levels of government, federal, state and local, the two major parties are Liberal and Labor. Instead of aligning with one extreme or the other, each party takes a centralist stance on their respective ideologies. Liberal is centre-right, whereas Labor is centre-left. It's up to the minor parties to align more directly with either left or right ideology. The Greens, for example, are a lot more left than Labor. The Nationals are a lot more right than Liberal. Though many forget the Nationals their own party and they have an alliance with the Liberals, hence why in some sense they're referred to as the LNP. Pauline Hanson's One Nation is a more extreme version of the right wing, but that's not to say that within the Liberal and Labor there are MPs that have views that are left or right leaning. Within the Liberal Party, MPs such as Peter Dutton are typically more right. Former Liberal MP Corey Bernardi was outspokenly more right, and because he couldn't work within the constraints of the major party, he briefly founded his own minor party, the Australian Conservatives, which has since been disbanded. The party used to have policies against same-sex marriage, LGBTQ+ sex education, abortion and renewable energy targets. Within the Labor Party, MPs such as Tanya Plibersek are typically more left. Plibersek is a part of the Labor left faction. Look at it like a club within the Labor Party. This faction has policies on issues such as progressive tax reform, refugee rights, gender equality and same-sex marriage. And that is what left and right wing are in the Australian politics.
That clears things up quite a bit.
Agreed. I think that we find these days being politically informed is more difficult, and so it's surprising that terminology that can be quite simply explained is often remembered incorrectly.
I've actually been struggling with a pretty difficult issue myself recently. My housemates and I were looking to get a pet, but we just can't seem to agree on which one.
That's difficult. It sounds like you need a system to follow in order to choose the best pet for everyone. Let me give you a hand.
Okay. What's that?
Well, this is what I like to call Declan's housemate's pet voting system.
Looks a lot like a ballot paper to me.
Yeah, kind of. Above the line here, we have all different kinds of pets. Dogs, cats, reptiles, and birds. If each of the member of your household votes above the line in ordering their preferences 1 to 4, then we can choose an animal where all the votes come out equal.
But what if there's a tie?
Well, you see, Declan, this is where preferential voting comes in. If you, say, voted for a bird as your first choice, but it comes out with the least amount of votes, your vote would then be transferred to your second preference, and so on until one animal gets the majority of the votes.
Oh, that makes sense. But say I wanted a dog but only a specific breed of dog. How would I get to have my say about that?
Now that's where under the line voting comes in. So you can choose to either vote above the line or below the line. Below the line, you have the option to vote for one specific type or breed. Say you wanted a Labrador, but you didn't want a German Shepherd, a Terrier or a Beagle. Well, then you have the option just to put your vote in Labrador.
Oh, cool. So I can preference each specific breed of animal in each category?
Yes, you can. Under cats, you may get a similar variety of candidates as it's a more popular group. However, other parties may have more different types. But just remember that you can only choose to vote above the line or below the line. You can't change in between.
Oh, this is genius. But if I pick dog above the line, how is the particular dog breed chosen?
Well, let's say that your voters all pick dog. Maybe the pet shop or the shelter that you go to will pick a dog that's most suited for your party or household.
Okay, so what is that one on the end there? Does that say rock? What pet type does that fit into?
Well, this is an independent representative, meaning they don't have a category or a party, so they're under the line voting only. Generally, they're independent because their characteristics don't fit into a pet category.
Isn't that sort of what America does? Like, you vote for the person, not the party.
That's exactly right.
Well, I think my vote belongs to The Rock. It sounds the cheapest by far. And now that that's decided, let's talk about the real political parties of Australia. There are so many political parties these days that it's hard to pick.
So we've decided to make your life a little bit easier by giving you something that you never asked for. The perfect way to find your political match.
Labour. Swipe right if you want a party that cares about you. I love union rights, affordable healthcare, and hefty donations from wealthy Chinese benefactors. I don't just care about money. I also care about benefits for the privileged and coal. You can call me Tony. Wait, no. Scott. You know it doesn't matter, we're all the same.
If you're not a vegan, swipe left. Trigger words include coal, banks, strawberries. Why not go on a date? This climate change emergency is going to kill us anyway. Let's get dinner. I don't like Indian food.
Let's have a candlelit dinner, some wine, and chat about our respective private school educations. Money's not the only thing I'm good with.
I don't like Mediterranean food.
I like guns, fishing, and farming. It's kind of in the name.
I don't like any Asian food.
Make your love life great again. Swipe right.
I don't like African food.
Guns don't kill pussy. I do.
I wouldn't mind some fish and chips.
I'm not a furry, I swear. There's plenty of fish in the sea. And I caught them all.
Fundamentally, I believe in the re-legalisation and regulation of cannabis for personal, medical and industrial use. This means the release of all those convicted of only cannabis-related crimes and the removal of all cannabis-related records which, unfortunately, disproportionately affects Indigenous Australians. Also, let's get really fucking high.
Wow, so political Tinder is just as weird as real Tinder.
Yeah, you never really know when you meet someone online what they're going to be like in person. That's why we've got former Greens Senator Andrew Bartlett in to answer some questions. Welcome on, Andrew.
Thank you. I can't compete with any of those folks on Tinder, I'm afraid. But
all right.
Suddenly feel like I should join the hemp or the Animal Justice Party. But
So, how long have you been in politics?
I first joined a political party 30 years ago with a party called the Australian Democrats, which was precursor to the Greens, paved the way to a lot of the Greens do now with environment and human rights and community engagement in politics, and just a third party alternative to the traditional two-party system. But I guess, you know, been involved in politics more broadly before that, basically ever since I first went to uni, which was early 1980s. So, you know, there's many ways to be involved in politics beyond just a political party.
And would you say that university instigated your passion for politics, or did it start somewhere else?
I guess I'd always been interested in an intellectual sense, but university and just, you know, getting out into the wider world made me realise that you can play a role, not just by joining a party, but by, or even any organisation, but, you know, joining organisations or going to rallies or events or forums, or, you know, I was very involved at university in 4ZZZ, which is a community radio station that's still around today, and it's always very active in sort of political issues and social issues. So there's a heap of different ways that you can be political, and I think you don't have to go to uni to learn that, but I guess it's just a reminder that you connect with people, you can be active in 100 different ways, and of course you've got online and all sorts of other mechanisms to connect with people now as well.
And when it comes to the parties that you've been a part of, what steps did you take getting involved with those parties?
I just filled in a application form to join, basically, or do it online these days. it's pretty straightforward, and most parties are keen to have people to join. So you just dive in or dive. I mean, I've always just taken a view with any organisation or, you know, Triple Z again. I just wandered in the door and said, hey, can I try this out? And been involved in a lot of different groups, and some of them you join and, you know, you don't fit, or, you know, there's other people doing stuff where you don't feel like much use, or it's just not your thing. Other ones you just do it and, you know, you can do this and that leads to something else. So I think just try a few different things, but just join. It's good if you know somebody there to give you a bit of an idea of how it works, because the big thing with any organisation and political parties is often there's the formal rules, but there's the informal, you know, networks and social expectations of how it works as well, and it's good to know somebody else to tell you a bit of how that pans out.
And what would you say are your best tips or tricks for young people that want to express their political views or want to get involved in politics themselves?
Oh, just go for it. Don't assume that just because someone else has been doing it, they know what they're talking about. The one thing a lot of people, particularly in politics, but in many other walks of life, are good at is acting like they know what they're talking about when they actually don't. And, you know, having fresh ideas is actually valuable. You know, having a lot of experience is valuable as well, but just, you know, say what you think, raise things, never think, I should wait, and, you know, I don't understand. You know, that's why it's good to know some people, because you can sort of ask people things you're not sure about, but don't get snowed by other people just saying, oh no, it doesn't work like that, or you wouldn't understand, or, you know, you're too young, or whatever. Just go for it.
Is there any other advice you'd like to give to the fresh voters of Australia?
Gee, I mean, politics is just so terrible. So join in, yeah. But don't let that put you off, you know, which is a bit counterintuitive, but there's a lot of horrible aspects to it. And, you know, the world's a pretty awful place, but the world's also an amazing place. And I guess that's why connecting with people and finding people that you share the values with is an important part of it. But persevere, I think, is the one thing. I mean, you know, if it really doesn't suit, you know, don't do stuff that doesn't suit your values. But you know, there'll be times when you just think, oh, this doesn't work, or I'm sick of this, or this is unpleasant. You know, particularly politics, whether it's a political party or political activism or whatever. You know, you're trying to change the world because there's parts of the world that are stuffed, and you're trying to come up against some very entrenched power that really doesn't want things to change. You're going to have to push. So not get discouraged. Don't keep bashing your head against a brick wall. Look for different ways of doing things, but don't give up.
So being socially media savvy yourself, do you think there is a place for politics on social media?
Absolutely. I mean, I think you can get trapped in the Twitter bubble, same as you can get trapped in the politicians' bubble and everything else. You need to connect with people, and you need to go outside your circle. And the big problem with political parties is they're a little, you know, while I'm saying, you know, go and hang out with people that share your values, don't just talk to those people. You've got to connect and listen to people that disagree with you. And the thing that all political parties suffer from is they're basically just trying to tell people that they're great and, like, you know, find different ways of marketing to people, and they're not really very good at listening and changing their mind and going, oh, actually, yeah, maybe we need to think differently, and finding different ways to connect. They're very much about, you know, we're great. If you don't vote for us, you're obviously stupid. And yeah, I think the big thing is to get outside those bubbles. So, you know, social media is dangerous in that way, but it's also great because it can connect you with a whole lot of people you wouldn't otherwise find yourself talking with. So again, it's a bit of that mix of connecting, but also listening. And yeah, politicians not very good at listening.
So what would you say is an appropriate level of activeness on social media for a politician? Can they go too far with something they might do?
Yeah, they can, although it's, you know, everything suits different people. I mean, some people are just natural to it, and, you know, I like to use it to listen as well, not just, you know, find the witty viral post or whatever, although, you know, that's always nice. But, you know, and some of them work well for getting feedback. I mean, I don't know, before Facebook people used blogs a lot. They still do them a bit, but not as much, and I tried that as a way of, you know, people genuinely leaving comments and engaging from anywhere. But, you know, it can get pretty toxic as well, of course, as everybody knows. And it's a lot harder if you're a person of colour, it's a lot harder if you're a female. You cop it much more nastily. So, you know, you've got to figure what works for you. The same as some people are just naturally, what's that word, articulate, and outgoing and extroverted, and they're just good at working the room and chatting, and others, you know, I'm perhaps a bit more introverted and can pause too long between words and all those sorts of things. So, you know, what works for you as well, but I guess also push yourself, you know, beyond your comfort zone a bit. But again, listen, whatever way you connect, it's about listening, not just marketing.
And do you think that people at a younger age are starting to get involved in politics more?
Yeah, I do. I mean, there's this really bad myth that's been thrown around the political bubble and the press gallery and the parliamentary bubble that, you know, young people don't care about politics and they're disengaged and they're selfish and they're all about themselves. And young people are smart enough not to get engaged in the crap that's a waste of time, because they can smell that it's a waste of time and it's full of shit, and they don't want to go near that, except the few that are full of shit and dive right in. So, you know, but a lot of young people are very active, and we saw the climate march, you know, hugely inspirational for older folks like me. You know, I get my energy and ongoing inspiration by knowing that younger people that have got that drive and that are pushing forward and are not giving up just because, you know, my generation haven't succeeded. So there's, I know young people are very engaged, but at the same time, it's a lot tougher now. You know, I always feel embarrassed. You know, when I went to uni, didn't have uni fees. You know, the Labor Keating government brought that back in the late 80s. You know, whereas now you've got all the fees. People have got to work as well as study at the same time. You're in a massive HECS debt, the wages are stagnating, your jobs are insecure. It's a lot harder to be active and just spend time going around exploring and going to forums and listening and all that stuff. So, you know, but there's other ways to engage. So, you know, every era is different. So I think it's, you know, people find their own way as it works for the world that they're in.
Thank you so much for coming in and answering some of our questions, but that's all we have time for. It's been really insightful.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. And it was a great discussion, but some discussions don't go that well.
She's literally the best dog ever. Like, ever.
The best dog ever is no dog at all.
Excuse you?
I'm just saying, when it comes to domesticated house pets, the cat trumps the dog every time.
Here we go.
Don't even get me started on how dogs are better than cats.
Don't bother.
Dogs love you more.
My cat loves me. He just likes his independence. If anything, that's better. Having a dog attached to you all the time slows down your productivity.
I don't work from home.
So that doesn't apply to you. But that doesn't make it invalid.
Yes. So if you did work at home, you'd have less productivity having the dog around all the time.
You can't just make a conclusive statement about a hypothetical scenario.
Exactly. If anything, my productivity starts earlier in the day because I take my dog for a walk every morning. You can't bond with cats over shared adventures like we can.
Well, it's not unheard of for cats to be taken out for walks. And even if it's not the norm, that doesn't mean there isn't an equivalent activity.
Too true. My cat and I have a respect for each other that signifies our significant relationship. I am his source of nourishing food, and
you also pick up his poo.
That's a low blow. You have to pick up after dogs as well.
And he is not completely reliant on me, so he doesn't pander like a dog for multiple feedings. Follow-up point, there's less expense on food for cats because they don't eat as much.
Does the argument that dogs cost more to care for than cats actually have any relevance to which one makes the better companion?
I would say no.
I would argue yes.
Okay, and do you take that particular stance because it would decrease the esteem of your argument and opposingly increase the esteem of yours? Or are you answering because in a fair argument, everything should remain objective? The fact of the matter is that this argument is completely subjective. You're both talking from personal experiences, and clearly you're too ignorant to acknowledge the other person's viewpoint. You both know this is pointless, because the only way you're going to be able to find a definitive answer is by putting the bias aside. However, realistically, you're only both in this argument to gain the social upper hand by proving your point. And in both your arguments' cases, you're choosing to only use evidence that supports your claims. Conclusively, this argument's completely meaningless, since you're never going to be able to find a middle ground when you refuse to acknowledge the other person's opinion.
Oh, but we both agree that women should have the right to decide what to do with their own body, right?
Of course. Well, I think we've got just enough time to ask our student audience some questions.
Yes, if you agree with the question that one of us gives, then raise the green for yes, red for no, and yellow if you're on the fence. First question, are you involved in politics? Why are you on the fence about being involved in politics?
I mean, I'm involved enough to vote, and I'm involved enough to have an opinion, but I don't think I'm involved enough to say that I make more of an effect than the everyday person.
So, second question. After the information we've given tonight, do you think that Australia has an effective and fair voting system? We might go to this gentleman in the hat. Why are you on the fence about Australia having a fair voting system?
I'm just not sure on whether my vote really counts. And I voted when I turned 18 in Rockhampton and Brisbane, but I'm just not sure whether I've made a difference or not. I try as hard as I can and feeling like I'm informed, but am I doing the best I can to change Australia and the world? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I totally agree.
All right, third question. Does the Australian media portray political bias? We'll go for Jamie up the back in the green shirt. Why do you think that the media does portray a political bias?
Well, I think every media kind of company has their own bias that they put through and what they put out. So, yeah.
Makes sense.
Simple.
Do any of your political views align with your parents' views? We might go just here. Why are you on the fence about it?
Well, I think obviously I have two parents, so that kind of makes a difference there. But yeah, I think I've seen my parents sort of change as their sort of like values of wealth and age has changed. So I think, being young and in a different sort of like wealth sort of bracket to them, yeah, I think it used to be more similar to them, but, now they've kind of changed, I've changed as well. So, makes a difference.
Within the political environment, there has been a lot of talk about the environment. Do you think that this extends beyond a political issue? We might go over to Andrew for this one. Why do you think... Yes, of course. Why do you think that this extends beyond a political issue?
Well, it's not saying that the personal is political, and I suppose it's depends how you define political, but it's way more than politicians and parliament and voting. It's about every aspect of our daily life. It's certainly about our economy and how we relate not just to each other but to our planet. So it's all encompassing, and in that sense, I think that goes way beyond what most people would think of as politics, or particularly just an environment issue of the environment separate from the economy or society or tax or whatever.
Nice. Alrighty. Do we think that Labor and Liberal have become more centrist and align more than in previous years? So have the same values? Ooh. We might go back to you with the red.
I feel like, especially in recent years, and especially with the Liberal National Party, things have gotten a little bit more separate. I guess because of the influence of different nations, and especially since they've gotten a little bit more extreme. And we are under the influence of a lot of different nations, like maybe America. So I guess maybe the Labor Party has gotten a little bit more right, but it's definitely that the Liberal Party, especially since they are siding with the National Party a little bit, has gotten far more right than in previous years.
And I think that's all we have time for tonight.
Oh, dang it. Thank you for watching though. If you're still here now, then there must be at least one thing you enjoyed, so follow, like, and subscribe. Thanks again to Andrew and to our studio audience. We have one more episode next week, and it's going to be a real party.
And don't forget to like and follow our pages on Instagram and Facebook. And until next week, get it together. Thank you. Thank you.